Welcome to my new video about Taijiquan and Neidan practice in the Wudang style of Central China, and of course the program which I call the daoland program. The core of the program is focus, discipline and love for your fellow beings. To understand anything about Taijiquan as a practice, as it is being done in the right way, you have to understand more background about its theories and the origin of its theories. The thought is, that in the creation of the universe, because of the activity of Tao, primordial Qi produces the universe, it becomes the universe in that sense, and that the diverse things, both animate and inanimate, they are all contained within that universe. So that means that the Qi is the means to produce the universe. The Qi comes in two kinds, the Yin Qi, coagulating, and the Yang Qi, which is radiating or expanding. When they are in interaction, they are either polarized or they are what is called in Taiji state. Taiji state means that they are mediated by a range of, say, gray area between the yin and the yang, which takes away the power of the polarization. The thinner the gray area is, the stronger the polarization. As such, Taiji is also known by other words, like Da Tao, which means big Tao, or Da Ji, also called big pole. Other names by which we know it are, for instance, Tai, which means bigger exchange, or Tai, which means bigger regulation, or Tai Su, which means bigger void or absence. The first mention of Taiji is describing its function, and it is appearing for the first time in the Daoland, the appended statements commentary, or the Daoland of the I Ching. The I Ching goes accompanied by 10 texts, which is called the 10 wings. And these are, additional information to understand the I Ching, and the I Ching can only be understood within the theoretical framework or the game rules that are being described within the I Ching, even though in itself they are to be seen also as a commentary on what the mystery of the I Ching actually is. The I Ching is a book of morality and teaches us the permutations of yin and yang. There is this text called the Taiji Shou, which means something like a bigger Taiji diagram explained. It is one of the writings by Zhou Dunyi which are still revered, and Zhou Dunyi is from the 11th century, Song dynasty. The suggestion is that he had it either directly received from a Taoist who teach him this diagram, or he saw it in an old 8th century text. You have to understand that for a culture like the Chinese, almost every text they came across was like a revelation from the past. At the end of the Song dynasty, the thinker Zhu Xi, who had a period of experimentation with Buddhism and Taoism before he became an orthodox Confucianist, he saw the text of Taiji Shou as an ultimate description of the mysteries of the I Ching as to be used by Confucianism. You have to understand that Confucianism as a way of thinking was ultimately practical, focused on society and focused on the well-being of people. Neo-Confucianism added to that a spiritual dimension and was looking for new meaning in the classics of Confucianism to be able to express its ideology. The Taiji Shou combines the Wuji and the Taiji with each other. And the Wuji is the without polarization, and the Taiji is the with polarization. When there is movement or dong, the Taiji produces yin and yang. And when it reaches its extreme, then there is quietness, jing, which in itself produces the yin. So when a yang movement is extreme, it produces yin quiescence, and that produces yin. That means that in Taijiquan, as we are moving, we are actually trying to reach quietness inside us through our movements, and as a result of that, we produce a yin on the inside. But we have to reach into the theories of Zhou to understand what he means. You have to understand that Zhou is highly revered in Confucian culture as the founder of Dao Shui, the learning of the Tao. And it is a particular stream of complicated ideas and intellectual currents that the Westerners usually combine under the name Neo-Confucianism. He did not necessarily mean something like that, but to start a new movement, but he did nonetheless. He also earlier mentioned that Drusi mainly is responsible for appointing him as the leader of this movement, the founder as such. What I think is interesting about his ideas about yin and yang is that he suggests that through movement and the extremity of the movement, the polarization, in fact, you eventually end up with quietness. This quietness, this jing, is relevant because it is also a ripening moment, you can say. So the inner quiet, like similar like in meditation when you are sitting, reaches eventually inward and coagulates the yang qi into yin. As such, in Taijiquan and especially Wudang Taoist, it is very important because the Tao is ruled by Li, and Li are the ethical principles underlying the art. So at the moment when you are in a martial combat with life or with a person, then at that moment you try to polarize somebody into quietness. So you reach a culmination, and at the moment when the culmination is being achieved, then at that moment, very simply, both reach a state of quietness and unity, you can say. And at the moment when this unity comes about, something new comes about, emerges, you can say. So you can say that Taijiquan is based on emergence theory. As such, Tao just produces qi, and qi is divided into yin and yang. But because of the Li, the moral principles, eventually Tao and Li, they mingle in Tao Li, and they produce the Tai Cheng, the virtues, the pure virtues of sincerity and authenticity or genuineness in the movements of Taijiquan, making that a movement, a form, is not a formula to be copied, but it is a principle to be acquired and to be expressed through your emotions. Ironically, that doesn't mean that you can do whatever you want with your moves. It actually means that you have to go through this training process of ritualizing your moves and standardizing it, and eventually getting enough information to come to the point where you can make it your own, and then at that moment you can start developing the uniqueness that is typical for your mastership. That is why it is often said in Taijiquan that the foundations of mastership are in discipline. That doesn't mean, like in the case of Sun Lutang, that you all the time have to make the same moves, because that is not mastership, that is just military prowess. And I'm very well aware that a lot of people will say it as heresy when I say something like this, and I discredit Sun Lutang as a master. He was amazing as a martial artist, by the way. I wouldn't like to have an argument with this guy. What we can deduce from this is that Taijiquan as a principled art actually is much more complicated than we think. And at the moment, when we are really achieving the goals of Taijiquan as a Neo-Confucian practice, and at that moment actually we are reaching the spiritual goals of the art. Confusingly enough, people think Wudang Taoism is a form of Taoism, but it actually is not. It is a attempt of Neo-Confucianism to become like a spiritual or religious movement. And as a result of that, it created a monastic style of its own and merged partly with Taoist movements like the Longmen and the Zhengyi Dao. It is important to understand what will happen to you at the moment when you are achieving the Jing state and you become calm on the inside, because then the yin has to be produced. And the yin is on the one hand the strengthening of your body, but it is also the manifestation of the emergent properties. And these come out as a sort of trance, as you see here in my practice. And at that moment, when the yin comes about and the inner quiet has been achieved, there is an accumulation of the things you have been learning and developing, and eventually will radiate outward as a non-form Taiji practice. And this is basically where we end our story. This is when things become genuine. You know, the kind of things that you would also do for a bingo game. When I was talking with my father the other day, that is how it's supposed to